who it'll be. Briksza has won a Legacy Open before. Last year when we were in Columbus, got the job done with his take on Jeskai Stoneblade, as we've mentioned many times, influenced the way that Brian Braunduin built his deck to win Grand Prix New Jersey. And for Merriam, El's aficionado, we've seen him get second place with that deck at our Season 3 Invitational Legacy Open. And he's had a lot of top 8s with it as well. He also got second place in Providence, one game away from going back-to-back last year.
Two players who have been doing quite a bit of work in the last 6 months. Also two players who I think were just short in Grand Prix finishes of qualifying for Pro Tours within the last calendar year.
Yeah. I do agree with you. I think that Merriam is favored here, but we'll see how familiar he is in this particular matchup. Ross has impressed me with his play thus far on camera, though. Again, I expected maybe some bumps in the road for his first real big tournament with Storm.
Though Ross, Rudy rather, is not as hopeless here as some of the, say, Esper Stoneblade pilots we've had earlier on camera. He has 4 copies of Force of Will, 3 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Hymn to Torok, 2 copies of Liliana the Veil. He can get a really good curve of discard, and that's tough for Storm to beat. Much better to attack this deck with discard than with counterspells, in my opinion, and Rudy's got a lot of it.
Well, both players will take a look at 7 cards here. You have to imagine they know what each other is playing at this point as they're making deep runs in the tournament. Merriam's going to send his hand back. Briksza has a Force of Will. Looks like he shrugs his shoulders and says, I guess I'm just going to have to keep.
Really good sign for Rudy, for Ross to take a mulligan here. Really compounds the power level of his discard spells if Ross has to go down to 6 or 5 cards.
Let's see if Ross can find a better 6. It is a deck that mulligans just okay. I think it can go down to 6 comfortably. It's when you get into 5 and lower territory that things get really bad.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world to mulligan to 6. The only problem here is it's matchup specific because of all of Rudy's discard. And a 6-card hand can go south real quick if Rudy has Thoughtseize, and especially if he has Hymn to Torok.
Well, let's see Ross's 6.
He did not even have to consider that hand.
Yeah, it must have been a pretty bad one.
Now the upshot here for Ross is Rudy's deck is quite slow. Not a lot of pressure, only Tarmogoyf representing a quick clock. So assuming that Rudy doesn't blow him out of the water with discard spells, Ross is going to have a lot of time to reassemble a hand.
And then proceed to 5 additional turns. That is the end of round for standard and modern.
But still, very tough way to start.
Yeah. Never a good time to mulligan to 5 in a Magic tournament. But it's magnified here.
I guess this will have to do.
Here's a Scalding Tarn. And we're underway here in round 15. Rudy with his Ancestral Vision on suspend. Merriam will play a Scalding Tarn and simply pass the turn back. Misty Rainforest here for Briksza. And he'll play a Tarmogoyf. So now he's putting pressure on Ross in, kind of a roundabout way. He's got a small creature, but that pressure is better than nothing. But the ticking down of Ancestral Visions, too, means that Ross, you don't really have time to mess around.
Still, it's probably better, all told, for Ross, that this is the kind of start that Rudy has rather than one stocked with discard. Because I think on 5 cards, Ross would not be able to overcome it. Yes, this is, Visions into Goyf is a nice opening, but Ross is getting some time here to improve and sculpt his hand.
Hey, Brainstorm will be placed on the stack here. And we will see if it does resolve as Tarmogoyf works its way up to a 2-3.
Also, the fact that he's making his land drops is very nice because it means that he'll need fewer ritual effects down the line to be able to resolve something like Ad Nauseam.
I imagine 3 cards coming here. Yes, Rudy does have a Force 1 in his hand, so perhaps he was considering countering it, but has elected not to.
Little aggressive at this stage.
Yeah. Merriam going to sacrifice his other fetch line now. Go down to 18. And there is a Volcanic. And we'll see if Ross can put together anything special on turn 3. He does have a Duress in his hand, so he can take a look at things. And because Rudy is tapped out, it's not a bad time to be doing so.
Yeah, only has to concern himself with Force of Will. Now, he may not be able to go off this turn, but...
Getting in some information, taking a look isn't a bad idea. But of course, I use the discard spells in this deck. That's what separates the good players from the great. Do you wait when you're going to go off? Or do you just do it now to get a look? Now, Gataxian Probe will make things a little bit easier. Here's a hand with Toxic Deluge, a stinker, Charlotte's Agent, not bad, a Tarmogoyf, it's okay, then 2 copies of Force Will. So if Merriam works his way into a Cabal Therapy here, yikes.
Good news. I mean, the best case scenario for Rudy is he forces it, pasting Charlotte's Agent, and then he keeps the Force of Will, but is without a blue card.
Here's a Ponder.
Yeah, Cabal Therapy, definitely the big one to find right now.
Yeah, Duress is okay because there are only 2 blue cards, 2 copies of Force of Will. So if you take one of those Force of Wills, it forces Rudy to draw another blue card. So that's still acceptable, I think. But Cabal Therapy is the big one.
Well, Duress puts him at, still has Charlotte's Agent and Force of Will left over. So he can still counter.
Yeah, my apologies.
But Cabal Therapy is really bad news for Rudy. It puts a ton of pressure on him to draw a blue card.
I do wonder how Ross wants to move forward here, though. He's going to play a Polluted Delta and sacrifice it. Get an Underground Sea. Down to 15. Tarmogoyf for 3/4. It's ready to attack. Now, most of the ones we saw from Merriam this weekend so far, too, have been through Past in Flames. He hasn't had to go to ad nauseum very much.
Well, he's probably going to have to ad nauseum this hand unless he's sandbagging a lot of Dark Ritual effects because his graveyard has no mana.
Here's a Preordain.
Just trying to give himself as many looks as possible.
Yeah, 4 therapies versus 3 duresses in his deck, by the way. Ross taking a long look at this scry.
Still gripping that Duress. Remains to be seen what is going to be done with that because Duress does not do very much against Rudy's hand right now.
Preordain again. So much cantripping. Just trying to get it all set up. They're going to go to the bottom this time. Mystery card come in. It is ad nauseum.
That's a big help.
Okay. There's an island there for Rudy. He'll play a Charlotte's Agent. Abrupt Decay is the big whiff.
Nice.
Yeah. Here's an attack for 3.
And what's really dangerous about that now is the discard spells could be amplified as he's down a blue card.
Yeah, that's the big one, right?
Now I believe a Duress clears the way.
Yes, and Ross knows his hand. And
yeah, exactly.
Of course, Probe is going to give him even more information, so Duress now clears the way, where in that instance, perhaps Briksza is just supposed to play a Tarmogoyf and pass the turn back so he can protect his hand a little bit.
Well, Rudy has some really high upside hits. I mean, if he finds Thoughtseize or him, that's probably a game-winning play.
Sure.
But now Duress has gone from doesn't really do anything to does a ton at least this turn. Now, Ross might have to pull the trigger soon because we've been focused on the Force of Wills and all that kind of stuff, but his life total is taking some pretty big chunks. So if he's going to try to have to win through ad nauseum, which appears to be the case because he doesn't have that much in the way of ritual effects, he's got to get the ball rolling like now. You know, he doesn't have that much time to spare.
This is pretty scary territory. There's duress. Gotta take a force will, of course. Not gonna take toxic deluge.
Good call.
And Ross just has to pass the turn back, so Rudy will draw. He'll get in here for 5. Merriam's gonna go down to 5. Briksza will deploy a Tarmogoyf and pass the turn back. Merriam's gonna draw. It's a copy of Dark Ritual.
And no blue card from Rudy.
And now here's an Infernal Tutor. With it on the stack, crack the LED. And Rudy does not have a blue card. And now that this is resolved, you know the coast is clear that Merriam is just going to go nuts, or at least try to.
And Ross has got a fair amount of mana to work with, both in play, floating, and a Dark Ritual in the graveyard.
Yep. 3 blue, 1 black. He's also got some free cantrips down there in Gataxian Probe as well.
Yep.
Now, so this isn't just an auto at this point, it seems. Ross is doing the math right now about how he can go about getting this done. And it may involve maybe brainstorming, Gataxian Probing, or what have you.
Well, he's got 5 lives to play with, which is significant because it means he can Gataxian Probe twice.
Yep. He's going to grab Past in Flames. He will cast Past in Flames here in just a moment.
In a moment, your
Spell 4.
new round will be up on the board. Please make way.
And this decision to play the Charlotte Agent instead of the Tarmogoyf coming back to haunt Rudy a little bit.
Perhaps he could have dealt another point of damage, or another blue card in hand for Force of Will. A lot of things to add up. I understand the risk.
Rudy was going for the haymaker.
Yep.
I mean, he was trying to knock Ross out there because if he hits a discard spell, it's all over. But he hit Abrupt Decay instead, and then Duress suddenly got turned on. The worst case scenario, a lot of things had to break the wrong way for Rudy, but they all broke that way.
Yeah. Ross searches for Tendrils of Agony. And I think he's got this sewn up because what he can do now is he played a Dark Ritual from the graveyard, and then he plays Infernal Tutor when he has no cards in his hand, searches Hellbent style, so he gets any card he wants out of his deck, which is Tendrils. Now he can go Probe you, maybe cast Arrest, what have you.
Brainstorm, Preordain,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's got the card that he needs in his hand. And he's got the life to work with as well. So that probe is spell 7. The other probe will be spell 8. Draws a copy of Brainstorm.
He's still got Underground Seas available to make mana. I mean, he's got a lot of tools to work with.
He just wants to make sure he doesn't mess this up. Make sure he has enough mana to get it all done. That's the big concern here. And he's slowed down now. So he's going to cast a Ponder. Take a look at the top 3 cards. A Brainstorm, a Dark Ritual, a Duress. Dark Ritual, I believe, should complete things now. As he quickly keeps it, he will cast it, he will Tendrils, and that is going to do it. Ross Merriam's going to win game number 1 here over Rudy Briksza, barely. A top deck Dark Ritual is what helped him get the job done.
And a mulligan to 5. Rudy with a pretty solid hand. No discard spells, but that really speaks to how bad this matchup is game 1 for Rudy.
It is certainly very difficult as Merriam was able to steal that one. We'll go to the sideboard. We will start with Briksza. And what does he have available?
A scrub land that enables 2 copies of Containment Priest and 2 copies of Meddling Mage, 2 copies of Nile Spellbomb, 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage, Numazawa's Jitte, a Pithy Needle, a Disfigure, 2 copies of Golgari Charm, and 1 Pernicious Deed. Not a lot in the sideboard here. I like the 2 copies of Meddling Mage. I like the 2 Nile Spellbombs. I don't like the Grafdigger's Cage because Ross doesn't have to go off through his graveyard, but Nile Spellbomb can stop the same sort of combo and be a low opportunity cost cycler. So I think the Nile Spell Bombs are good here, but not the Gravedigger's Cage.
On the other side of things here for Merriam in his Storm deck, 2 Xanthan Swarms, 3 Carpet of Flowers, 3 Abrupt Decays, 2 Massacre, a Pyroclasm, Empty the Warrens, a Tropical Island, and 2 copies of Chain of Vapor. Anything here stand out to you?
The 3 copies of Carpet of Flowers and the 2 Xanthan Swarms seem like they're going to possibly come in. I don't know. I could see both, one or the other, or neither coming in, exactly, depending on how Ross approaches the matchup and what cards he's worried out of Rudy's deck. If he's primarily concerned with the discard, then I think it's really important to bring in the Xanthan Swarm, because you cast a Xanthan Swarm, you get Thoughtseize and Tamed a bunch. The Xanthan Swarm's not worth very much. Carpet of Flowers is pretty strong against any sort of base blue strategy, but Rudy doesn't have a lot of in the way of stop permission, like Fluster Storms and Daisies he's trying to punch through. So Ross may bring in one or the other, or both or neither, like I said.
Yeah. I don't know how much he needs to change, but it looks like he's going to change some things around. Both these players working their way up the Season 1 leaderboard, and I imagine as they do work their way up, we're not going to be able to travel to every tournament. For example, we're going to Los Angeles, and they both live pretty far away from there. But I imagine they'll probably try to play in some IQs to keep those points up, and taking the opportunity to do that actually gets you a lot as far as qualifying for the Invitational.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're great if you're just looking to play in more local events, if you're trying to qualify for the Invitational, or if you're already on your way to the Players' Championship, a way to add some more points. All these IQs come with exclusive playmats, dice bags, pins, SCG premium vouchers for either signing up for the tournament or finishing in the top 8. And we have all the information and schedules you need on our website.
StarCityGames.com for more information about our fantastic IQs of the regular, super, or premier level. Of course, all of our Open Series events do have premier IQs at them. We've got a standard one and a modern one taking place this weekend when we are in DC. In 2 weeks from now, we'll have a legacy one and a modern one there, as our main event will be standard. And for a lot of players who play in the Players' Championship, Kevin Jones, Joe Lissette, Stephen Mann, even Ross Merriam, IQs were very important for them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that nearly everyone who qualified for the Players' Championship through points, either through the at-large bids at the end of the year or who were a season champ, did some of their work in the IQs.
In front of you, please raise your hand.
Game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment. Rudy Briksza, Ross Merriam. Rudy will be on the play. Ross waiting patiently. He's been here before.
And this is now 2 straight feature matches where we've had Rudy have a bad matchup, opponent mulligan to 5 on the draw, game 1, and Rudy not win.
That is pretty telling.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Says a lot about the difficulty of these matchups.
But it's also kind of a nice thing, too, where, you know, if you're on the other side of things, you can mulligan to 5 and still win.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I think you can mulligan to 5 in Legacy and win far more frequently than in Standard because of the asymmetrical warfare. Decks are off doing their own thing, and, you know, if you're playing with just creatures or removal spells, mulligan to 5 is going to be really hard to overcome. But in Legacy, that stuff happens all the time.
Mulliganing can be frustrating, but you can still win on mulligans to 5. It's been demonstrated not only this round, but the previous one by David Long. And David Long didn't just, you know, he didn't just mulligan to 5. He didn't just mulligan to 5 and win. He mulligan to 5 and destroyed Rudy in the first game.
Yeah, it was a total beating. That game was close,
Yeah.
but the match against Lands was not.
Merriam going to take a mulligan again here.
Rudy's kept a very land-heavy hand here. It has Liliana in the Veil, and I do not know if it has another spell. I know there's at least 5 lands in there.
Perhaps he should consider a mulligan.
He's kept some aggressive hands so far through this tournament. Been on camera several times. A discipline of the Gerard Fabiano School of Mulliganing.
Sure.
A fellow Jersey native, stands to reason.
I'm a student of the Jerry Thompson School of Mulliganing.
He's a very aggressive mulliganer.
Yes. Mulliganing is not a punishment, it is a choice.
It's a game feature.
Yes.
You don't have to do it, but it's there.
I like to mulligan. I'm not Martin Juza-esque. Martin Juza will mulligan anything, and he will make fun of you if you don't mulligan. But I like to mulligan more than most. Don't be afraid to send that hand back. Here is a Deathrite Shaman.
So if he kept 5 lands, Liliana, Deathrite Shaman, I'm all about that hand.
Makes a little more sense.
Yes. I did not get a good look at card number 7, but this hand's very good.
Pluto Delta will be sacrificed. Miriam's going to go down to 19. Liliana instantly putting pressure on you.
Yes. And some combo decks like Seek and Show can largely ignore Liliana. Storm is not one of those decks.
This is a preordained for Merriam. He will take a look at the top two. And they are both going to the bottom, so didn't like either one of those. Mystery card is a copy of Infernal Tutor, never a bad one. Here's a Lion's Eye Diamond, and he will pass the turn back. Does not want to get that hit by Thoughtseize. A Wasteland will come down here, take care of that land. And Briksza will pass the turn back. Here's a Gataxian Probe.
Rudy showing a ton of respect for Ross's ability to go off that turn.
Yeah.
If he went for an activation of Wasteland in lieu of Liliana the Veil.
You do see the hand here of Liliana along with Force of Will, a couple of lands, and Scrubland, Verdant Catacombs, and Creeping Tar Pit.
So if he brought in the Scrubland, it means he brought in at least Meddling Mage, probably not Containment Priest, but some of the white cards came in.
There's Volcanic Island. Ross does have multiple copies of Brainstorm in hand. Also Ponder too. So a lot of cantrips here. And now that he knows he has to worry about Liliana's Veil, it will certainly influence the way he plays. Now here's a Ponder. So take a look at three of them.
Looks like a lot of black cards, which usually means a lot of mana.
Yeah. Ponder done resolving. Therapy in the grip. And Rudy will remove the Gataxian Probe to deal a little bit with Deathrite Shaman. Now it's time for Liliana. The elevator going up there. Merriam already ready to discard, we think. Perhaps changing his decision a little bit now. Creeping Tar Pit will go away for Briksza. Brainstorm will go away from Merriam. Ross gonna draw. He'll cast a Brainstorm now. 3 cards coming here. Delta among them. Looks like a Dark Ritual too.
Delta's a huge draw here because Ross was without black mana. And it looks like he'll have a chance to take another Liliana hit, untap, and do some crazy stuff. And who knows, maybe even this turn he's good to go.
Potentially.
I mean, he has Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, a Brainstorm that's about to enter the graveyard alongside his Polluted Delta in this hypothetical. That's Threshold, a Lion's Eye Diamond, an Infernal Tutor.
It doesn't take much.
Depends. He does know about Force of Will. He knows that Rudy didn't have a blue card last turn. Maybe he drew one, maybe he didn't. If Ross, it depends how much Ross is willing to weigh in that to his calculations. But I think this is a hand that may be able to go off this turn.
What's interesting about Storm when you watch someone play, and I think very vivid about watching Adam Prozac play this deck in the Open Series a couple of years ago before he moved on to Wizards R&D. He was always very good at picking his spots on when to make a move, when to go off. And, you know, that's kind of a skill. And you play the percentages a little bit, but you also play the feel a little bit. If you think your opponent drew a blue card or not. And, you know, it's easy to say, well, you know, maybe I'll wait and take the turn to Cabal Therapy you to make sure the coast is clear. But, you know, you do a little bit of math with the percentages. And also, you know, if he gives Rudy another turn, that's another Liliana activation. That's another draw step to get him closer to a blue card or a Brainstorm. So I like taking the opportunity here of, if it all lines up appropriately, I'll cast a Brainstorm, I'll play a Dark Ritual, I'll play a Cabal Ritual, and let's go for this.
Exactly, and the way this actually works out, because the last 2 cards in Ross's hand are the Pass in Flames and Infernal Tutor, even if this Infernal Tutor gets countered, he may have enough mana left over where he can flashback the Pass in Flames, Ritual again, and go for it. It's not even necessarily doom and gloom in the event that Rudy drew a blue card. And if he doesn't, well, he's just dead.
And you can see his hand, he did not. The draw for the turn was a copy of Liliana, so Ross is going to play Infernal Tutor, hold priority, break the Lion's Eye Diamond, of course, add some mana to his mana pool. He's cast a bunch of spells this turn. He's got a bunch of mana to work with. And we'll see what he's going to search up here with Infernal Tutor. Since it is Hellbent, he gets any card that he wants. And now he's going into math mode, something he's very skilled at given his history in mathematics. So he's going to search for a Cabal Therapy, not something you see very often.
Well, he's saying he's got some wiggle room to play with if that's what he's doing.
Now he's going to flash this back. And Rudy is already reaching for the slip. He knows the outcome here.
Yep.
Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Infernal Tutor, get a Tendrils of Agony. And it's not Ross's first time in the top 8. But we're going to see him head that way right now. Ross Merriam wins this match here over Rudy Briksza. 2-0. His first big tournament with Storm, and it is a nice one. 12-3, and we're going to see more of him. A deep breath. Number 4 on the Open Series leaderboard. He's moving on up now.